You won't believe what Mr. Beast did after his mom was treated this way in public. It was a crisp autumn afternoon in Greenville, North Carolina, and Mr. Beast, real name Jimmy Donaldson, was enjoying one of his rare days off. Known worldwide for his extravagant charitable acts and viral challenges, Jimmy rarely had time to slow down. But today, he had promised his mom, Mary Donaldson, that they'd spend it together running errands and catching up. As they entered the bustling local grocery store, Jimmy couldn't help but notice how cheerful his mom seemed. Mary had always been the backbone of their family, working tirelessly as a single mother while raising Jimmy and his siblings. Now in her 60s, she radiated warmth and kindness, traits Jimmy often credited as the foundation of his own generosity. "Let's grab some snacks for tonight," Mary suggested, grabbing a cart and heading toward the produce section. Jimmy followed behind, smiling as she enthusiastically picked out fresh apples and oranges. But what started as a simple shopping trip quickly took a turn for the worse. As they approached the checkout line, Mary pulled out a reusable shopping bag from her purse, a habit she'd developed years ago to reduce plastic waste. The cashier, a young man in his early 20s, frowned immediately. "Hey, if you love emotional and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to like this video and subscribe. It really helps us bring you more incredible stories. And don't forget to comment below. What's your favorite moment? Let's talk." "No outside bags allowed," he said curtly, pointing to a sign near the register. "You'll have to buy one of ours." Mary blinked, surprised. "Oh, I didn't see the sign earlier," she replied politely. "I'll just put my items back in the cart and use your bag instead." But the cashier wasn't satisfied. His tone grew sharper, almost accusatory. "You're probably trying to steal something," he muttered loud enough for nearby customers to hear. "People like you always think you can get away with stuff." Mary froze, stunned by the accusation. "Excuse me?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm not stealing anything. I've been shopping here for years." The cashier shrugged dismissively. "Rules are rules. Either pay for a new bag or leave." Jimmy, who had been quietly observing until now, stepped forward. "Hey, there's no need to talk to her like that," he interjected firmly. "She made an honest mistake. It happens." The cashier glanced at Jimmy, clearly unimpressed. "And who are you supposed to be?" he sneered. "Her bodyguard?" Before Jimmy could respond, Mary gently tugged at his arm. "Let's go, sweetheart," she whispered, embarrassment coloring her cheeks. "It's not worth the trouble." Reluctantly, Jimmy followed her out of the store, his jaw clenched with anger. Once they were safely in the car, Mary sighed deeply, trying to brush off the incident. "These things happen, Jimmy," she said softly. "It's fine, really." But Jimmy wasn't convinced. Watching his mom, a woman who had sacrificed so much for him, be treated with such disrespect ignited a fire within him. He knew this wasn't just about a reusable bag. It was about power dynamics, judgment, and the lack of basic human decency. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that, Mom," Jimmy said, his voice tight with emotion. "But trust me, this isn't over." Over the next few hours, Jimmy stewed in quiet determination. By the time evening rolled around, he had devised a plan, one that would not only address the injustice but also shine a light on the importance of treating others with respect, regardless of appearances. Early the next morning, Jimmy returned to the grocery store, not alone but accompanied by a film crew and dozens of volunteers. Outside the entrance, he set up a massive display featuring thousands of reusable shopping bags, each emblazoned with the words, "Kindness matters." Curious shoppers began gathering around, whispering among themselves as Jimmy climbed onto a small platform to address the crowd. "Yesterday my mom came here to shop," he began, his voice steady but filled with conviction. "She accidentally broke a rule, and instead of being treated with understanding, she was humiliated and kicked out." A murmur rippled through the audience as Jimmy continued. "That's not okay. No one deserves to be treated that way, especially someone as kind and hard-working as my mom. So today, I want to send a message. Compassion should always come before judgment." With that, Jimmy announced his plan. Every customer entering the store that day would receive a free reusable bag, along with information about organizations combating workplace discrimination and promoting empathy in retail environments. Additionally, he revealed that he had partnered with local businesses to offer free training sessions for employees on respectful customer interactions. As the event unfolded, news crews arrived, capturing footage of Jimmy handing out bags and speaking passionately about the need for systemic change. Social media erupted with hashtags like "Kindness Matters" and "Stand with Mr. Beast," amplifying the message far beyond Greenville. Back inside the store, the young cashier watched nervously from behind the counter, clearly realizing the magnitude of his actions. When Jimmy approached him later, extending a handshake. The cashier hesitated before accepting it. "I'm not here to shame you," Jimmy assured him. "I'm here to remind you and everyone else that we all make mistakes. What matters is how we choose to grow from them." The cashier nodded, visibly shaken but grateful for the opportunity to reflect. Meanwhile, Mary stood nearby, watching her son transform a painful moment into something extraordinary. "You really are incredible, Jimmy," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. "Your dad would be so proud." Jimmy smiled, pulling her into a tight hug. "We're doing this together, Mom. Always." But little did they know this was only the beginning. What happened next would take their mission to an entirely new level and leave the world speechless. The impact of Jimmy's impromptu event rippled far beyond the grocery store parking lot. Within hours, footage of his speech and the massive display of reusable bags went viral, sparking a global conversation about respect, accountability, and systemic bias in customer service. While many praised Jimmy for his bold response, others were quick to criticize, some accusing him of overreacting, while others claimed he was using the incident as a publicity stunt. Among the skeptics was none other than the grocery store's regional manager, a stern woman named Patricia Lane. When she arrived at the store later that afternoon, flanked by security personnel, her demeanor made it clear she wasn't pleased. "Mr. Donaldson," she began, her tone clipped and professional, "while we appreciate your efforts to promote kindness, you've disrupted our operations and created unnecessary attention around this matter." Jimmy raised an eyebrow, unfazed by her authoritative stance. "Unnecessary attention?" he repeated, his voice calm but firm. "You mean drawing attention to how poorly your employee treated my mom? That kind of attention?" Patricia hesitated, clearly unprepared for his directness. "Look, I understand emotions are running high," she said, attempting to soften her tone. "But this isn't the way to handle things. You should have contacted us privately instead of making a spectacle." "A spectacle?" Jimmy countered, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "So you're saying it's better to sweep issues like this under the rug? Pretend they don't exist?" Before Patricia could respond, Mary stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Jimmy's arm. "Let me talk to her," she whispered, sensing the escalating tension between them. Reluctantly, Jimmy nodded, stepping aside as Mary approached Patricia. There was something disarming about Mary's quiet strength, a stark contrast to the heated exchange moments before. "I know mistakes happen," Mary began, her voice soft yet steady, "and I'm not here to ruin anyone's reputation. But what happened yesterday hurt. Not just me, but countless others who might feel too afraid to speak up. All we're asking is for a chance to turn this moment into something positive." Patricia studied her for a long moment, visibly conflicted. Finally, she sighed, rubbing her temples. "I'll admit I wasn't fully aware of the details until now," she admitted. "If what you're saying is true, then yes, we need to address this, but I can't promise anything without consulting corporate." Mary nodded graciously, understanding the limitations of the situation. As Patricia excused herself to make phone calls, Jimmy turned to his mom with admiration. "You handled that beautifully," he said, smiling. "She didn't stand a chance against your charm." Mary chuckled softly, though her expression remained thoughtful. "It's easy to react with anger, Jimmy, but sometimes kindness gets you further. Besides, I learned that lesson from raising you." Their moment of levity was interrupted when one of Jimmy's volunteers rushed over, holding a tablet. "Jimmy, you need to see this," the volunteer urged, showing him a live news segment airing nationwide. On screen, pundits debated the ethics of Jimmy's intervention, with opinions sharply divided. Some hailed him as a hero standing up against injustice, while others accused him of exploiting his mom's experience for clout. The criticism stung, especially when clips surfaced of previous interviews where Jimmy discussed his charitable work. "It's always the same with these influencers," one commentator argued. "They claim to care about real issues, but it's all about boosting their brand." Jimmy watched silently, his jaw tightening as the words sank in. He had grown accustomed to scrutiny over the years, but hearing such accusations tied to his mom's pain felt different, personal. When the volunteer asked if he wanted to issue a statement addressing the backlash, Jimmy shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "Actions speak louder than words. Let's focus on finishing what we started." As night fell, Jimmy expanded the scope of his initiative. In addition to handing out reusable bags, he announced plans to partner with local schools and community centers to host workshops on empathy and conflict resolution. He also pledged to donate a portion of proceeds from his merchandise line to organizations supporting victims of workplace discrimination. Word of these efforts reached Patricia late that evening, prompting another meeting between her and Jimmy. This time, however, Her tone was markedly different. "Mr. Donaldson," she began, her voice tinged with sincerity, "after reviewing everything and speaking with corporate, I believe we owe you and your mom an apology. What happened yesterday was unacceptable, and we're committed to ensuring it doesn't happen again." Jimmy nodded, accepting her apology but pushing for concrete action. "Apologies are important," he agreed, "but they're meaningless without change. Will you implement mandatory training for all employees on respectful customer interactions?" Patricia hesitated briefly before nodding. "Yes, absolutely. We'll roll out a comprehensive program starting next month." Satisfied, for now, Jimmy extended his hand, sealing the agreement. But as he walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to be done. The incident had exposed deeper issues within society, issues that couldn't be solved overnight. Later that night, as Jimmy sat alone in his hotel room, scrolling through social media comments, he came across a message that stopped him cold. It was from a young woman named Emily, who shared her own story of being mistreated at a retail job because of her appearance. "I saw what you did today," she wrote. "It gave me hope that maybe people will start treating each other better. Thank you for reminding me that kindness matters." Something about Emily's words struck a chord deep within Jimmy. Her gratitude wasn't just validation, it was motivation. For the first time since the incident, he allowed himself to envision a future where his actions could spark lasting change, not just for his mom, but for everyone who had ever felt unseen or undervalued. Little did he know, Emily's message would soon become the catalyst for something even bigger, a movement that would redefine the boundaries of compassion and activism. Wow, this story's getting intense. If you're enjoying it so far, don't forget to tap that like button and let us know in the comments what you think will happen next. Also, share this video with a friend who loves celebrity stories. Emily's message wasn't just a heartfelt note of gratitude, it was a spark that ignited something far greater. Inspired by her words, Jimmy decided to take his initiative to the next level. He reached out to Emily directly, inviting her to share her story publicly during a live stream hosted from the same grocery store parking lot where the event had unfolded. "I want people to hear your voice," Jimmy told her over the phone, "not just mine. Together we can show the world how small acts of kindness can create big change." Emily hesitated at first, unsure if she was ready to step into the spotlight. But after talking with Jimmy for nearly an hour, she agreed. "If it helps even one person feel less alone," she said softly, "then it's worth it." The day of the live stream arrived, drawing thousands of viewers both in person and online. As Jimmy introduced Emily to the crowd, her nervousness melted away, replaced by determination. Standing beside him, microphone in hand, she recounted her experiences of being judged and mistreated at work, simply because of her appearance. "It's exhausting," Emily admitted, her voice trembling but resolute. "Every day I walk into my job knowing some customers will treat me like I'm invisible, or worse, like I don't belong there. But hearing about what happened to Mary reminded me that I'm not alone, and it gave me hope that maybe, just maybe, things can get better." Her words resonated deeply with the audience, many of whom shared their own stories in the comment section. What started as a local initiative quickly transformed into a global movement, with hashtags like #Kindness Matters trending worldwide. People began sharing videos of themselves performing random acts of kindness, tagging Jimmy and Emily to spread the message further. But the momentum didn't stop there. During the live stream, Jimmy announced the launch of the Kindness Project, a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting empathy and respect in everyday interactions. Through partnerships with businesses, schools, and community leaders, the project aimed to provide resources, training, and support for individuals facing discrimination or bias. "We're not just fighting against bad behavior," Jimmy explained passionately. "We're building a culture of compassion, one act of kindness at a time." As news of the Kindness Project spread, it caught the attention of influential figures across industries. Celebrities, politicians, and corporate executives reached out to offer their support, pledging donations and resources to help expand its reach. Even the grocery store chain involved in the original incident issued a formal apology and committed to becoming a founding partner of the initiative. Despite the overwhelming success, however, challenges arose. Critics continued to accuse Jimmy of using the movement for personal gain, while others questioned whether such efforts could truly affect meaningful change. Some employees at the grocery store resisted the mandatory training programs, arguing they were unnecessary or intrusive. One particularly vocal opponent was none other than the cashier who had humiliated Mary. Frustrated by the sudden scrutiny, he confronted Jimmy during a follow-up visit to the store. "You think you're some kind of hero?" The cashier spat, his face flushed with anger. All you've done is make everyone look bad, including me. Jimmy met his gaze calmly, refusing to rise to the bait. I'm not here to shame anyone, he replied evenly. I'm here to remind us all that we're capable of better, including you. His response left the cashier speechless, forcing him to confront the reality of his actions. Over the following weeks, the young man reluctantly participated in the training sessions, gradually beginning to understand the impact of his behavior, not just on Mary, but on countless others. Meanwhile, Mary found herself at the heart of the movement, serving as a symbol of resilience and grace. She traveled alongside Jimmy to speak at events, sharing her perspective as both a victim of prejudice and a champion of forgiveness. People often ask me why I didn't fight back that day, Mary told a packed auditorium during one such event. The truth is, I've spent my life choosing kindness over conflict. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. If we want to see real change, we have to lead with love, even when it's hard. Her words brought tears to the eyes of many attendees, including Emily, who had become a close friend and collaborator in the project. Together, the two women represented the human faces behind the movement, grounding it in authenticity and purpose. But just as momentum seemed unstoppable, an unexpected twist threatened to derail everything. A major sponsor of the Kindness Project pulled out abruptly, citing concerns about political backlash. Without their funding, the organization faced significant financial strain, jeopardizing its ability to continue operations. For the first time since launching the initiative, Jimmy felt the weight of doubt pressing down on him. Could he sustain the movement without corporate backing? Or would the critics ultimately win? It was Emily who reminded him of the power of grassroots efforts. This isn't about money, Jimmy, she said firmly. It's about people. As long as we keep inspiring them to act with kindness, the movement will survive. Her conviction reignited Jimmy's resolve. Rather than relying solely on sponsors, he turned to his massive online following, launching a crowdfunding campaign to keep the Kindness Project alive. Within days, donations poured in from fans around the world, proving once again that collective action could overcome even the toughest obstacles. As the dust settled, Jimmy realized something profound. The movement had taken on a life of its own. It no longer belonged to him. It belonged to everyone who believed in its mission. And that realization filled him with a sense of hope, unlike anything he'd ever known. We're about to reveal something shocking, but before we do, take a second to subscribe and turn on notifications, so you never miss an emotional story like this one. And tell us, if you were in this situation, what would you do? The crowdfunding campaign for the Kindness Project became a global phenomenon. Millions of people, from everyday fans to high-profile celebrities, contributed not only financially but also by sharing their own stories of kindness and resilience. The outpouring of support was overwhelming, reaffirming Jimmy's belief in humanity's capacity for good. But the true climax came when Jimmy decided to host a massive event called the Kindness Rally, bringing together thousands of participants from all walks of life. Held in a sprawling outdoor venue, the rally featured speeches, performances, and interactive workshops designed to inspire action and foster connection. It was more than just an event, it was a celebration of compassion. As the sun set over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the crowd, Jimmy took the stage one final time. Beside him stood Mary, Emily, and dozens of others whose lives had been touched by the movement. The energy in the air was electric, charged with hope and determination. "This started with my mom," Jimmy began, his voice carrying over the cheers of the audience. "A woman who taught me that kindness isn't just something you do, it's who you are. And today, we're proving that her lesson can change the world." He paused, glancing at Mary, who smiled proudly through tears. "When I first stood outside that grocery store, I thought I was fighting for justice. But what I've learned since then is that this isn't about revenge or blame. It's about creating a future where no one has to feel invisible, judged, or mistreated." Turning to Emily, he added, "And it's about lifting up voices like yours, voices that remind us why this matters. You've shown me that kindness isn't just an act, it's a ripple effect. One person's courage inspires another, and another, until we create waves of change." The crowd erupted into applause, many rising to their feet as Jimmy announced the next phase of the Kindness Project, a nationwide tour aimed at reaching underserved communities and amplifying marginalized voices. Partnering with local organizations, the initiative would focus on addressing systemic issues like workplace discrimination, racial bias, and socioeconomic inequality. "We're not stopping here," Jimmy declared, his tone unwavering. This is just the beginning. As the rally concluded, attendees left with renewed purpose, carrying tote bags filled with resources and tools to spread kindness in their own communities. Among them was the cashier from the grocery store, who approached Jimmy hesitantly before departing. I wanted to say thank you, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper, for giving me a second chance and for showing me what real leadership looks like. Jimmy extended his hand, shaking the young man's firmly. We all make mistakes, he said kindly. What defines us is how we grow from them. The moment was captured on camera, shared widely online as proof that even those who perpetuate harm can learn to be part of the solution. For Jimmy, it was validation that the movement wasn't just about calling out injustice. It was about transforming hearts and minds. In the weeks that followed, the Kindness Project continued to gain traction, earning recognition from global leaders and humanitarian organizations. Schools incorporated its curriculum into classrooms, businesses adopted its training programs, and individuals embraced its message in their daily lives. The grocery store chain that had once been at the center of controversy became a model for inclusive practices, thanks in large part to Patricia's commitment to reform. For Mary, the journey was deeply personal. Watching her son channel his pain into purpose filled her with pride, but it also reminded her of the sacrifices she'd made along the way. One evening, as they sat together on the porch of their family home, she reflected aloud. You know, Jimmy, she said softly, I used to worry that your generosity would leave you vulnerable, that people would take advantage of your kindness, but now I see that it's your greatest strength. Jimmy smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. It's because of you, Mom. Everything I am, everything I do, it comes from you. Their bond, stronger than ever, served as the foundation for the legacy they were building together. And while the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, they faced it with unwavering optimism. Months later, Jimmy received a letter from Emily. In it, she shared how participating in the movement had transformed her life, not just professionally but personally. She had found confidence she never knew she had, using her platform to advocate for others facing similar struggles. I'll never forget the day you reached out to me, she wrote. You didn't just give me a voice, you gave me hope, and for that, I'll always be grateful. Reading her words, Jimmy felt a profound sense of fulfillment. This wasn't just about changing systems or policies, it was about touching lives, one person at a time. The movement had grown beyond anything he could have imagined, yet its essence remained unchanged. Kindness, empathy, and the belief that everyone deserves to be seen and valued. As he tucked the letter away, Jimmy glanced out the window at the bustling city below. Somewhere out there, someone was choosing kindness because of what had happened that day in the grocery store. Someone else was standing up against injustice, inspired by the stories shared at the rally. And somewhere else still, a mother was teaching her child the same lessons Mary had taught him decades ago. In that moment, Jimmy understood that true impact wasn't measured in likes, shares, or donations. It was measured in the quiet moments of connection that rippled outward, shaping a better world. What an incredible story. If you loved it as much as we did, make sure to like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Your support helps us bring you even more amazing celebrity stories. And don't forget, new videos every week. See you next time.